Welcome to the RA-5C audio commentary portion of our Vigilante DVD. I'm James Duffy. I'm the producer of this DVD package. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Captain Walter Alt, a naval aviator with 27 years of service in the U.S. Navy. Captain Alt flew a wide variety of aircraft during his service, starting with S&Js and F-4Us in the days after World War II, leading up to time in the 50s and 60s flying A3s and the RA-5C Vigilante. Welcome, Captain Alt.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. And here we're going to talk about the RA-5C and handling on board a carrier, the Enterprise, I believe. I was an aircraft handling officer aboard USS Independence, but did spend a little time on Enterprise during the Cuban Missile Crisis. What we're seeing right now are some of the crew buttoning up the camera slots on the aircraft, and there are numerous cameras that were involved. This is the squadron that I was in itself, our VAH-12. Okay, this is operations aboard Kitty Hawk in 1966, and I think this is a flyby of the ship, which will give you some appreciation of the size.
There's quite a variety of aircraft on board the boat here.
There very definitely is, and it looks like that they're just about to begin a recovery process.
Now, you've flown several of these aircraft.
I have, yes. I've flown both the A4, the F8, the A3 aircraft, which I think we're going to see a picture of in a few moments. And I've spent 2 tours as ship's company on USS Independence.
Looks like we've got a Vigi in the groove here.
There is a Vigi. From an aircraft handling standpoint, both the Vigi and the A3, which was affectionately known as the Whale, present somewhat of a problem simply because of their size. Okay, this is another Vigilante that's approaching a ship. Looks like it made a good landing. Got caught by the wires.
Now, they're aiming for that third wire there on the deck of the carrier, correct?
Just so long as you get in the spread of the wires, you're okay. Ideally, yes, you catch the third wire. There's a prop aircraft.
An A1.
An A1, that's right. Flew those in Korea. We're seeing an A3, which is the predecessor of the A5A and the RA-5C, making an approach. And it looks like he waved off.
Now, the A3 you mentioned, it was originally developed as a bomber.
That's
slash
correct.
Reconnaissance platform.
It was, but it was primarily a nuclear bomber.
And it served for many, many years, well into the 90s, as a refueling tanker.
That's correct, because it had a capacity for carrying a great deal of fuel. And here we have a helicopter that was probably acting as a plane guard is coming back aboard, which means either the recovery's over or this helicopter needed refueling.
Now, you mentioned plane guard activities. They would have a helicopter operating in the vicinity of the carrier whenever there were launch or recovery operations occurring.
That's correct. You also had a destroyer or smaller naval ship that acted as a plane guard that usually was following the carrier all the time. So between the helicopter and the ship itself, why, you were prepared to take care of accidents if they occurred. We see some of the what they call yellow equipment on the flight deck in these shots. There's the nose of a Vigilante sticking out. The whole dance that takes place between moving the aircraft and servicing them is quite complex, and it takes a little while to learn how to do that and do it quickly and safely. We're panning now by an A-6 aircraft, which is one I had hoped to fly, never got a chance to, but turned out to be a real workhorse in all kinds of naval aviation, from reconnaissance to troop support, everything.
Now, as we go down the elevator here,
We're going down an elevator.
the mass of the carrier really strikes me here.
Yeah.
They're truly immense boats.
And there are 3 elevators on the carriers. Well, one forward, one amidships, and one aft. Here we're looking at flight operations in Vietnam during 1966, and it's a Vigilante apparently climbing from the way it looks in this photo.
Now, how far offshore would the carriers be stationed?
I would say generally about 150 miles.
And how long would it take to get from the carrier to the shore?
To the shore, 10 or 15 minutes. These aircraft, of course, are capable of Mach 2, and although they do not normally fly at those speeds because the fuel consumption at those speeds is extremely high, and also it makes it difficult for any other aircraft that's trying to fly with them as a protector to stay with them. So they'll still be going along at a pretty fast clip.
Now, by nature of the mission, the reconnaissance mission, you were flying these aircraft in following bomb raids by other aircraft.
Sometimes, and sometimes you were going before them, well before them, even a day or two before them, in order to determine the areas that you wanted to bomb. So, yes, they were used for intelligence purposes when they went ahead and got information for you, and then they were used after raids in order to give some kind of bomb assessment or damage assessment of the targets. Okay, here we have an aircraft that is just commencing a mission, apparently, and chances are that this one's going in to do a bomb assessment or damage assessment for the intelligence department. It normally would be followed by 1 or 2 F-4s who go along as escorts to protect it, and it's necessary for the Vigilante to run at a speed where the A-4s can keep up without having to use too much burner and use too much fuel themselves.
Now, the RA-5C could go substantially faster than an A-4, right?
It'll go faster than an A-4. It'll go faster than an F-4 too. So, and in a moment, I think we're going to see one of these Vigilantes refueling from an A-4. I've flown the A-4, but I have never refueled a Vigilante. The A-4 doesn't carry all that much fuel. I think there's possibility of transferring around 400 gallons from the A-4 to another aircraft such as the RA-5C. Okay, this aircraft is in the act of refueling, which could take place either on a returning aircraft in order to give it enough fuel to get back to the ship and work safely, or could be refueling an aircraft after it reaches a cruising altitude It can be done by a variety of aircraft, from the RA-4 that we just saw in the previous pictures to the KC-135, which we're looking at right now.
How long would it take to take on a load of fuel, and how much fuel would an aircraft take on?
Normally, it just takes a few minutes to take on a load of fuel. And the amount that you take on obviously depends on how much you've used already. But I'd say that you take on several thousand pounds anyhow. And in this picture, I think we see an F-8 accompanying RA-5C. The F-8s also had a reconnaissance version, and it may be that they were flying along waiting to be refueled as well as the Vigilante itself. You see the basket down at the end of the boom here.
How difficult was it to get that drogue into the basket?
It's not too difficult to get the drogue into the basket, but you hear different kinds of sounds with the drogue out, and there is a flap that normally covers where the drogue seats itself. When it's out, it flutters pretty well on the A5. Looks like they're about to disengage here. We'll see that happen, I think, in just a moment.
When refueling operations were occurring, would there be several aircraft waiting in line, not unlike a gas station?
There could be, but in most cases, there were not more than one or two. And they were the ones that usually were low for some reason. Now we're pulling out here, and the drogue's coming forward. They're no longer plugged in. I went back and plugged in again. And that's possible during refueling too, where you lose the basket for a little bit and pick it up again. But this is just like flying formation, really. Well, the A5, as you can see, or RA-5, is a beautiful aircraft. It's just as pretty as today's stealth aircraft were. And I think it attracted all aviators because of its performance ability. This aircraft set the climb record out at Point Mugu, California, when it was flown in a basic configuration thing. It climbed to, I think it was sea level to 50,000 feet in a minimum time, and is just gorgeous as it passes in the air.
Well, that brings us to the end of our pilot's commentary discussion today. Captain Alt, I'd like to thank you for your time today. Perhaps we can get you back to share some of those old stories of the F4U days.
That'd be nice. I'm very happy to do that.